Perfect. Welcome everyone. I'm just going to be doing some sculpting and kind of start fresh on a brand new character. I'm going to be making a Peryton, which is like a deer mixed with a hawk or something. And they're kind of an interesting character from mythology, although I learned today that they've only been an idea since like 1957, so that's interesting. But we're going to run with that and just get going here. So I'm using my display tablet over here. It's a Wacom Cintiq 24. And I'm going to start off the proper way by deleting the cube. Okay, and then I'm going to align my workspace here so that the character faces, let's do positive Y will be forward on the character. So I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to start with a sphere. And I'll just tab into edit mode and subdivide this a couple times. And that'll give us plenty of detail to work with. All right. So for a long time, I would refuse to use references, and eventually I learned that that's just kind of a bad idea. So this is a super low quality picture, but it's really just for the general form anyway of the body. So I'll just get this kind of close, and then we'll do most of the work with sculpting. Get my screen's cleaned up here. All right. So with this, I don't really have to change a lot of viewport settings. So I'll just switch over to sculpt mode. And we're going to do an X mirror so that it stays symmetrical sideways. And then I'm going to run constant detail and dynamic topology. Oh, let's go pretty high. Just start with 256 and see how that does. Okay. All right. So now that I have dynamic topology turned on, whenever I move this model around, it will just basically add details to make sure that it's not stretching or breaking anything. So at this point, I can do this really, really fast to make the general shape. And so in the past I would, okay, seems better. Good. In the past, when I started these models, I would usually start off with actual modeling and then try to get the shapes close beforehand, and then kind of combine them all at the end. And it just, to me now, is so much more work to do it that way. So now I do everything by just sculpting tools. And hopefully I'll be able to get to the part here where we'll do multiple retopologies so that we can kind of control how easy the mesh is to deal with. So what you want to do when you start these is basically just go as fast as you can with filling in all of the general details. And then if you have a tool to retopologize really quickly, you want to use that to just kind of fix the mesh every now and then you can restart with a nice clean mesh that has less detail. Thanos says buffering's gone except for audio mismatch. Man, yeah. Yeah, Brianna says just refresh. I think that does work, so hopefully that'll work for you. Sorry about that. Okay, let's see. No, we don't want to crash Blender. All right. So 256 is way too much topology, so let's go to like 92. See what that looks like. It's still quite a bit. 64. Okay. That should be a lot more workable. Fine now, everything good? Okay, awesome. All right, now we're moving. All right, now I apologize again for all of the mess, but it's been more than a year since I've even tried to stream, so there's bound to be a little bit of that, I suppose. Okay. So when I build basically any character, I like to start with the body, and then I'll build the head separately so that I can really get the mouth and the smaller details on the head to be correct before I try to combine it with the neck, and that just helps keep the quality up a little bit. All right. And some of this I'm not gonna use the reference for too much, just because I've modeled a lot of animals in the past, so the general forms and stuff are pretty familiar to me, but just start off as blocky as possible. All right, let's use snake hook actually. Maybe a little bit smaller radius. Okay, there we go. So this tool just kind of lets me pull new shapes out of the front. So I'll just do that, and I'll make this really small, maybe zoom in a little bit. Just kind of block in general shape of the feet, and then I'll have to get a better reference. I actually have a kid's toy over here that I can kind of use to help with some scale and stuff too. So having a physical model in front of you is super nice as well. Okay, I'm just going to start inflating this. Deer legs are super thin anyway, so I don't want to go too crazy with it, but just have to have a little bit of a round shape. Just kind of throw some on the side over there. Okay. Going to grab some tea and snacks. Thanos is getting committed over here, guys. I'm going to start to clean this up now. This reference is kind of in the way, so I'm going to slide it back so it's behind the model. There we go. Go back into sculpt mode here. Okay, remote. I'm gonna 3D print it. I might. Yeah, if it looks good enough, I might just print it. The problem with 3D printing is you have to plan it and model the hair so that it's actually printable, because your printer can't print little tiny strings. But I might just make a version of it that's easy to print. It is always a little more fun to see the characters in person or be able to hold them. I think one of these days I'm gonna have to figure out a way to get some music in here. I was looking at YouTube's music library for streaming, and it looks like somewhat expensive, but I'll have to try that. Let's see. Pull up the belly just a little bit. These guys definitely don't have as much of a belly as like a horse would. And I'm going to take this, fill this neck in. Oh, really? Might have some flip normals there on the front. I'll have to fix those later. Not a problem for now. Okay, obviously that's too thick of a neck, so I'll pull that in just a little bit. Kind of round these out. Okay, yeah, and ideally you don't want to focus too much on small details this early. So I find myself getting a little bit distracted by trying to make shapes correctly, but it's definitely not something that you need to do. So basically what I'll end up doing is I'll get this to be a fairly general shape. That's pretty close. And then we won't go and add any sort of small details like ligaments and like the split in the hooves and small things like that until we retopologize it. And then I'll come in and I'll do sort of like medium level details. And that will just keep everything clean. And then we'll throw a multi-resolution modifier onto the mesh, and that'll let us do really small details without having to run as much for animating and stuff. And then we can generate all of our roughness maps and displacement maps and everything off of that later on. So in the past, I've also started with too clean of topology early on, and all that does is make you really mad when you have to delete it all to fix your mistakes. Okay, so now everywhere we've got some weird stretching, I'm just going to set my draw brush here to a strength of 0, and then I'm going to just go back over everything, and this will just kind of reset the mesh to a kind of nice uniform density here, so I don't have any of those weird stretching spots that start to kind of give us shading errors. So I'll just do that. Okay, let's see. Looks like the stream's still doing okay. Good, good, good. Okay. Switch back to solid. Like here, there's almost no reason to be smoothing this surface of this right now, but I just can't help it normally. All right, now we got to look. So I think we've got too much going on in the front here. So I'll pull that up a little bit. And then it looks like the front shoulders here are just a little bit thin, and maybe the body is a little too thick. So I'll just start working on the form. Okay, and then here soon I have to decide which feet to make the bird feet. So I've seen these done both ways. So I'll probably put the bird feet on the back. But since you guys are here, you can influence that if you think there's a better way. Let's make this a little smaller. Puff that out. Just want it to kind of represent the shape. So these, I'm going to make strength pretty high, and we're going to start doing this kind of bird foot shape on the bottom. Just maybe snake hook that and see what it looks like. Let's turn the strength up. Okay. Okay. Start with that. Just kind of make it look a little different so we know what we're working with. And let's see, we'll have to have the one on the back. So we can do that real quick. Make that even smaller. So at this point, I definitely don't worry about anything looking correct yet. I want to get a good scale of the entire body before I start to worry about super small stuff. But I feel like it's helpful to have sort of a little bit of a first look to know. Let's see. Okay, that's not a terrible start. So I was going to set this tablet up with the camera so that you could see what I was doing on the screen, but I figured that you guys probably get the point, so you can kind of see it from that side anyway. So I moved my desk around to try to make the background look a little bit better than my basement view. Okay. So one defining feature of the shapes of deer is this sort of triangle on their back hips. And they're very lean compared to horses. So I'll definitely make sure to show that a little. Then I'm just going to start working on little tiny adjustments as we go. And this is why I like 3D modeling so much more than drawing, because if I make any mistakes at all, I just get to undo them until it's back to where I liked it. Okay, now that leg is pretty straight up and down. So we're going to get ahead of that and fix that angle just a little bit. I think this guy needs to actually be pretty lean, since he's going to have some of the bird features, basically. So we'll pull his belly up just a little bit. Okay. All right, now this neck is way too cornered here. See if we can get that to round out a little. More strength. There we go. That's getting, it's getting a lot closer than it looks, trust me. So pull this up a little bit. Have to kind of separate the neck from the body a little bit there more in the future. They'll have little tiny skinny legs, so I got to pull those in. All right. Okay, that might be a good height for the very bottom of the legs, so I'll try to make these evened up a little bit. Let's start working on the toes. And I recently rebuilt this computer, and I had forgot before I got home from work today that all of my drawing tablet settings were probably gone. So luckily, I figured that out before we started. So at least there's that. Could have been worse. Okay. We got some weird toes on the back here. So it's only got 2 right now. Should probably do the correct amount. But the beauty of things that don't exist is that it's really hard to argue that anything is wrong with it. But let's just go ahead and do it. Let's do 3 in the front. So I'll just pull this inside one out a little bit. And then we'll just kind of make that the middle. Thin it up, pull it back and forth. Okay, that'll look pretty good. Let's see our okay. I'm just going to take this snake hook again. Let's just pull it out. Like that, maybe. This might be easier to do from the bottom view, actually. Okay. Yeah, that'll work. Just kind of start blocking it in. I think the closer you get the general details to what you want up front, not the specifics, but just the general details, I think the better off you are, because the scale and all of the proportions are going to look closer to what you expect. Okay. I'm gonna have to find some better bird feet references of this eventually, but that'll give us a nice little stand-in for the moment. Kind of smooth those out. And the smooth tool makes stuff thinner, so that kind of helps form these little chicken feet. That might actually not be too bad on the back, but let's pull this foot down flat. What is a Peryton? Peryton is A story, apparently, I thought it was an older character than this, but apparently in 1957 it was mentioned in a story about Atlantis, and a Peryton is a sort of a spirit of a person. And the way it was written in the book is that it was a person who was kind of a lost traveler who died far from home, and basically they become embodied by this um, deer with wings, and they're kind of I'll have to bring on the other references, but they're kind of aggressive, scary looking things in all of the depictions. But they kind of trick and haunt people, and at least in the original story, they cast a human shadow until they eat a person, and then they gain back their the shadow that matches their actual deer looking body. So they're really kind of creepy. But I think a general version of that that's maybe just kind of mischievous and maybe more so annoying than really creepy would be good for a story. But I've been working on some sort of kind of MMO world slash mythology type stories, and I kind of have two separate ones going. I don't know which one this will be in yet, but this will probably be in a more of a Greek mythology type setting than anything else. So that'll be eventually, but at least for now, I just like to create these. If nothing else, I just haven't seen a lot of 3D models for some of these creatures, so I find it fun to just go ahead and build them myself. Let's start getting some extra stuff in here. I don't remember. You know, that's actually, I think, gonna not be too bad. So I might have to leave that alone for a minute on the back feet, because I think we're gonna get to the point where I'm adding too much too early here. Okay. Make the feet more talon-like, like a griffin. Find this book. Yeah, I'll look it up on here so I can kind of tell everybody where I got that from, but um it was published in 1957. And apparently in the story, the Perytons lived in the city of Atlantis before it sunk into the sea, and there was something about maybe the Greeks were afraid that they would come across the sea and basically pester them since Atlantis disappeared. I think it was the Greeks. So it's a very interesting story. I haven't read it, but now that you say that, it makes me want to kind of read the book too. Let's see, talon-like feet. Yeah, I'll definitely do a lot more work on the feet in a bit. I don't know that I have a bird foot reference. Let me look it up. Let me see on my monitor real quick, because I did get a bunch of references, but it saved them as some sort of weird file type that Blender doesn't recognize, apparently. See, and I wonder, let me just try this. I'll just open this and pull it across onto the page. So not a great picture with my downscaled streaming resolution, but you can kind of see the idea. More or less just a deer with its front hooves and then bird legs on the back feet. Here's another all too fuzzy image, but you can kind of see the feet on there. This one doesn't have front legs, so that's interesting. This one's just kind of a deer with some wings. So that's kind of what we're going for. But yeah, I think I'll be able to make these much more hawk-like, or I think the toes need to be thicker for one. So that'll come after a little bit of general work. But I can definitely start to inflate some of these pieces so it looks better. So let's do that. And I have absolutely no formal training in any of my artistic experience. So I don't know if my methods are different than most people's, but I definitely jump around a lot when I'm sculpting. I find it kind of hard to focus on one spot for very long. Then I have to go change something else. Yeah, there we go. We'll start to just kind of thicken these up. And we'll pull that out in a minute. This is too far in. There we go. All right. So, and then the other note, these look pretty puffy, but the way I like to sculpt is to overdo the sculpting and then smooth it back out to the point I want. So it's easier to over exaggerate and then reduce details than it is to just build the details from scratch. Okay, now I'm going to start looking at the legs. So the front legs on them are actually very, very straight up and down compared to horse legs, as far as they don't have a lot of thickness variation. So I'm going to try to kind of make that a little bit closer. They have a little bit of muscle on the top, and then might thin out down here just a little bit more. Make this radius smaller. So it's interesting, in the original story, the author mentions an ancient book, basically, that talks about these creatures, and people weren't sure if this was an actual work of writing that was found somewhere. But as far as anyone knows, it was something he made up for the story, but nobody necessarily knows for sure. But I think the theory is that he just made up a book that his story talked about. So it's a little bit funny. Nobody knows for sure, I guess. Okay, I'm just gonna start kind of getting rid of this lump in here. It's not quite right. This needs to be built back out just a little. Something like that. They kind of have a little bit of a chest muscle there too. All right. Give him a little bit more of a forearm there. And then we'll pull up this little tiny knee. Make it just a little bit of a bend there. A bit of a dip. Okay. Thin it back out. All right. And by the way, I want to start doing more streams just in general when I'm working on things. I definitely do a lot more sculpting and character work than I show on the channel. So whoever ends up watching this, just let me know if you want it to be more of a tutorial or less of a tutorial. Because I know when I do these, I kind of get back into explain everything mode. And maybe people don't want that. So I'm just trying to kind of figure out what people want to see. Let's start doing some really generic shaping here. We want to kind of form up the chest and define the legs. So that's kind of all recessed in too far. So let's go fill that whole spot in actually. Huh, yeah, we do. We have our normals backwards here. It's pretty weird that happened with a sphere. So let's go fix that. I'm gonna go back to edit mode really quick. And Blender's going to want to kill me, but I'm just going to select all of it and hit Shift in and click. And what that'll do is it'll tell Blender that everything on the outside of this is pointing out. So now my tools won't disagree with each other. So basically sculpting tools, they go either in or out. And if it gets confused, it can do both at the same time. And that just causes a mess. Okay. All right. Looks like we got 7 people in here right now. Who else is in here that hasn't said hi yet? You're supposed to say hi, didn't you see the comment at the top? Nobody yet? All right, all right. I won't push you too hard. Just trying to be social. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but YouTubing is a very, very lonely process, except for when you talk to people. So it's a lot of fun to get on the stream or in the comments. I had a couple computer videos this week, or rendering videos, I guess, if you want to call it that did a lot better than normal, so that's been a lot of fun. Let's just scale this whole thing sideways. It's getting a little out of hand here. Okay, I'm gonna leave that big blob there for now. That's gonna give us plenty to deal with that later. And then we'll just kind of play around with this, kind of make the hooves. Let's turn off our reference so we can do both sides here. All right. Make these nice and small, be nice and thin. Let's kind of do that. Pull this back. All right. Pull the front. So normally I only use about 3 or 4 of the sculpting tools. And then most of the time, I don't really get into basically almost any of these. Especially now Blender changed how they look in 4.3. So all of my familiar tools went out the window. All right. So these are actually going to kind of split. to the side a little. They'll have points more to the side because now what I can do is I'll look straight onto it and we'll just cut a seam down the middle. Let's see, this one is, we'll do a sharp crease instead of a smooth one. Okay. What did my, say, my little hand controller for the tablet died. And it's plugged in too. All right. So let's make this nice and small, bump up the strength. And we'll just cut this right down the middle. Let's actually try to there. Let's move our focal point here so we can quit bouncing the screen around. Okay, now there's a little bit of lack of topology here. So we'll maybe deal with that in a minute. I'm just going to pull this out, kind of shape up the back here a little bit. Deer's hooves are super thin and they're relatively small compared to the leg. So I'll just try to make sure to keep that. All right. Now let's smooth it again just to keep it getting too goofy looking. That'll give it enough of a split that I can start to just drag out these little corners on here. That'll be good. That'll be good. Keep that thickness around the side there. And you want these to be nice and flat on the bottom. Kind of shape up the inside of those. Then I'll just grab this whole thing and pull it backwards a little more. A little thicker. Okay. Don't want to get too much detail there because we'll end up destroying it here in a minute anyway. Let's see what it looks like. We got a little bit of the general shape going. Still got too much neck going on there though. Too much shoulders. They're not really that muscly. Pull the legs in slightly. I think the back legs on this guy might just have to stay a little bit wider though, to give it kind of an aggressive looking stance. And then really the belly's probably going to have to kind of come up again too. Check out this wonderful reference material that I have. Make that nice and triangle-y. That's definitely a real word, by the way. Okay. Let's pull these in. I want that to be thick. I don't know if these toes are too big or not. Kind of looking pretty big. Let's start to fix the shape of these legs now that we kind of have the height. That back down. Let's do that. Run a wit. Do you need special equipment to do this? No, absolutely not. I like this drawing tablet because I do a lot of sculpting, and it speeds it up for me now that I'm used to it. But for the first 3.5, 4 years of using Blender, I just used my mouse and keyboard, and everything in the software is free with Blender, so you don't have to buy any certain software either. So definitely don't need to go spend any money on hardware. As far as the computer, the more details you put on the mesh and try to edit at one time, then the computer is going to have to be a bit faster, but you can do tons and tons of work with sculpting without having to go get a crazy system. So don't go spend more than a car if you don't know you need it, basically. Okay. We got something going haywire back here, but we'll have to fix that later. Yeah, and if you end up doing a lot of sculpting in Blender, there's other drawing tablets that are a lot cheaper, and they're still just fine. So you can also look into those. I have one somewhere. I just moved all my stuff around. I have one sitting behind me that I could show you. I think it was like $20, and it doesn't have a screen like this. But if you wanted to try just a tablet for the pen part of it, then might be worth just starting with one of those. And there's other video tablets like this that are affordable, so they're just not quite as specific, or the screen and the pen, and it just might not feel like it lines up the same way as this does, but really you'll get used to whatever you try to use. So they're nice to have, but not necessary by any means. this up. Let's pull this back. Okay. So now at this point, I'm starting to notice that I'm just kind of tweaking minor things, and we should really focus on more of the shape. So I know one mistake I always make with horse bodies, deer bodies, that kind of stuff is getting the scale of the length of the body compared to so like how far the feet are versus how tall it is. Because if you don't get that scale right, it starts to look like a completely different animal. I think we need to make our triangle shape a little more distinct here. And then there's kind of a hip bone at the top here. And then I think the backs are more or less pretty flat. So we'll start with that. Throw a little bit of a theme on here on the leg. Yeah, and then one thing about sculpting that I've learned too is I guess probably like a lot of things, when you are working on a model and you try to get it to look like you want it to look, and it just seems like it's so far away and it'll never get there. Well, the truth is that probably 50% of what makes it look good is in the very last 10% of the sculpting. So if you try to learn, it'll be discouraging possibly, but just know that once you're good with the tools, it's really kind of easy to move around and stuff. And then the faster you can tweak the model, the more versions of it you get to see, and eventually you can just basically force it to happen by trying everything. And that's why, again, that's why I like 3D sculpting, because when I used to attempt to draw, I didn't have the option to just change it back. I didn't have any electronics for drawing. It was all on paper. And if you messed up bad enough with that, then it was easier to restart maybe than try to fix it. But could I use iPad for something? I draw a lot on my iPad, and I want to get more of the 3D instead of 2D. Yeah, you can. There are ZBrush, which I'll show maybe today, maybe not, but to retopologize this, I use ZBrush. It's not cheap at all, but there are softwares like ZBrush. I don't think Blender is on iPad, but it might be. You'd have to check. I don't have an iPad, but there's tons of them. If you go search on the app stores for tablets and everything else, they have a ton of free sculpting software. So, and all of the files are portable, meaning if you start them on that tablet and just save it as like a .obj, then you could take that model and drop it right into Blender or any other 3D software. So yeah, I mean, if you're just wanting to try out sculpting, then that's a great way to go. And I have it's a fairly recent Android tablet. I think it's a Galaxy tablet, but it's not on the higher end of the options, and it runs hundreds of thousands of polygons in the scene. So like this one is made up, we'll just show it here. This is 331,000 triangles in this mesh, and you can see them. So most tablets and like newer iPads especially will be able to run 5 to 10 times as many details as this mesh has without crashing. So you definitely can do a ton on a tablet. So it just kind of goes to show you really don't need very very crazy hardware, and you shouldn't go get crazy hardware just to start out. Someday, if you need the speed, then you can upgrade, but it is not something to jump into in that way, I guess. Okay, let's see. We got some pretty freaky toes going on back here. These are gonna have to be fixed here. I'm not gonna be able to focus on stuff above this because it's gonna start to be too weird looking for me. So let's try to maybe take a guess at these, and then we'll try to pull up a reference for a bird foot. But I kind of want to keep this shape of this like ball of the foot where there would have been a hoof on this, because I think that'll kind of help keep it consistent looking with the front. But let's just try to be overboard with these details here, and I'll come back and fix it up in a minute. Geez, that's dense. Yeah, it is. It is. And really, like, this is 331,000 triangles, 165,000 vertices. If you were trying to make a game character, you would be wanting to run at 10 or 15,000 vertices at most, I think is basically what they would call low poly. I have some characters that I've made just because of basically not using the modifiers that I have at my disposal. They're not super optimized, but they have about 400,000 vertices, and I can still animate with them fine, but they definitely are a bit slower to render. And you know, if I try to turn on all of the hair, like the body fur and long hair that I've made, I can't play back the scene very well. So one of the best ways to do it is the way I'll show on here. You want to get a nice, clean, retopologized model, and then you want to add a multi-resolution modifier, which basically allows you to sculpt fake details onto the mesh. So what the computer will do is it'll actually run, say, 60,000 vertices. That's what it'll have to calculate. And then it'll use displacement maps and normal maps to kind of display more detail than it actually has to calculate. So, and again, I don't know if it'll be tonight or not. We may get that far, we may not, but you can basically bake any of the mesh information into a map that lets you skip the step of calculating it. And I don't fully understand how it does that, because to me it's still doing all of that math, but it's more or less, I think, one of the standard ways that they are able to run crazy looking stuff in games and run so fast. Okay. Oh, let's just get these looking like some sort of bird toes. Just a little bit at a time. Again, I don't want to come in here and make like toenails or wrinkles or anything like that, because any of that stuff will be destroyed by the retopology process. So it's better not to do it twice. So, all right. And then basically this level of detail I have on here, it wouldn't be enough. Even though this is super dense, it's not enough topology to actually come in and sculpt like these really fine little creases and stuff on here. And so if you're going to do it on a native mesh, meaning there's no funny business with modifiers or anything, you're going to have millions and millions of polygons. And that's fine and good if you're just taking like a single still render of your model. But if you want to animate it, then you're not going to be able to do that. And that's when all of the baked maps come into play. Because basically you can animate with a low level of detail, and then when it renders, it will display all of those extra steps that you've added to it. Okay, let's pull these out. I think these feet are actually getting the general form a little closer than I thought they were. I'll have to go look up a better bird toe. And I think I'll probably use like a hawk for reference. I don't know that it's even supposed to be anything specific because it's only ever been in one official mythology story, apparently. So we can basically do whatever we want. Okay, so no, those are kind of flat, but we'll deal with that later. Okay, nice. It's something. And they may be too big, they may not. And obviously they're not as long, so I need to check and see if I think the front legs or the back legs are too short. I think the back ones are. Let's pull those down. So I'm going to change the strength really high on this, make the radius big, and then I can pull this entire foot down without losing too much of the form. There we go. I'll just try to line it up with the front. Kind of check the body again. It's not too bad. Take a look at the reference. Yeah, so they're kind of a little bit round at the top of the back legs, and then they just slope in right here. Nice and thin. They're very skinny, athletic looking animals. I think this one will probably get a little bit more muscle on the back leg, but again, if these are going to be the bird legs, they probably should look kind of spindly. Let's zoom in on that. Okay. Oh yeah. That might actually work pretty good because that kind of looks like it lines up with the shape of the front. Let's inflate that, but it's just distracting. Let's just get everything overboard. Little too thick, little too long, and then we'll come back and we'll cut in the details later instead of trying to build them out. Let's do that. Hit it there. All right. Okay. Yeah, so this tablet, like most of them that have screens like this, they come with like this is a little separate controller, and every single one of these buttons on here can be programmed to be whatever hotkey or keyboard key you want. So if you're used to using a keyboard to sculpt, it's not really hard to switch to one of these tablets because you can just program it however you're used to using it. So that's kind of nice. I'm definitely no salesman for graphics tablets, but if you sculpt a lot or if you really like it, you may want to try one sometime because they are nice. It's just kind of a lot more natural of a feeling to actually be drawing directly on the object that you're working with. And really what I want to try someday is 3D sculpting in a VR headset. I think that would be really cool. Although I can't see myself doing that all the time for actually trying to get things done, but I think it'd be cool to try it once. But if you're going to do that, you may as well just be sculpting clay. Okay. This is getting pretty cool. Pretty cool. All right, let's pull this one back. Yep, and never forget, if you're doing this in 3D, just spin around, look at it from all angles. Like I like to spin the feet like this and see that this sort of this angle here is consistent. So if I get to a spot like this where it's sticking out too much, I might come in there and just flatten it out a little to try to make it consistent, and then I'll bring out this corner just to keep it nice and sharp. And as you spin around and you change the shape in little tiny spots like that, pretty soon you'll find that looking at it from far away, it'll just look great. So sometimes you want to take your time, and sometimes you just want to whip around in circles and see it from all angles. So I think this is a really good start. There's going to be more of a crease. We better kind of show that. The retopology will kind of destroy the model like this, where it's split like this. So you almost want to make this split more extreme up front. Otherwise, you're going to have to kind of add it back in. But once you sculpt for a little bit, you'll realize what is and what is not worth doing up front. Okay, let me look at my... Yeah, I think those are pretty close for the front feet, at least for the start. The legs are pretty spindly. They do have a little bit of kind of a bubbly knee, so let's put that in. And to me, it looks like they're about halfway up, so we'll kind of do just a little bit all the way around in this spot here. All right. Let's see, what do we got in the chat? If the Peryton gave birth, do you think it would be a live baby or an egg? That is a really probably not possible to answer question. But if it was my opinion, I don't know. I have no idea. I guess it just really depends. I mean, this one's going to have bird feet on the back. So does that mean the whole back of it is the bird part? I don't know. Because they don't really have... Where's my reference? Well, that's just a normal deer. They don't really have a bird head, but usually they put feathers on them and they give them fangs. So I don't know. Now that I think of it, it's kind of funny they have fangs, because a deer and a bird both do not have fangs. But that's all right. We're going to do it because it'll be cool. All right. I think we've got a lot of the general stuff here. I think these legs are just a little bit goofy still. Let's check that out and see what's going on. So we got to pull this kind of, I guess, groin area, whatever you want to call that, down. We had a little bit too high of an angle on the back. And then we've got to pull these thighs out. So like, this is what I'm talking about, where if you rotate around, this is too aggressive here. So I think what I need to do is kind of pull the front face of this leg outward just a little. And then maybe just make this kind of thigh area just a little bit thicker. Maybe pull the inside in just a little bit, like that. See if that helps a little. Yeah, it looks like it's not so bad. Okay. There we go. All right. So general form wise, let's pull this up. Let's pull that up a little so it matches the front. And then let's just pull this back more. Let's make this angle more extreme. One thing that everybody says in animation and character design is that you don't want to be too realistic, because nobody will see it as realistic per se in most settings. Really, they're just going to think it's boring. So you want to over exaggerate as much as you can where it makes sense to. So if I think this looks a little too up and down, then I'm going to have to just kind of make it more extreme. All right, let's do that. Let's pull the butt back. All right. It's getting a little interesting. Have you tried 3D printing? I borrowed one recently and printed some of my characters, and it was cool. Yeah, oh yeah. I actually got a decent 3D printer, I think last year, and it really helps to have one that works fairly often. And since I switched up to a fairly good one, it is a lot of fun. And I've been actually printing some bookends using my own characters for my wife's book collection. So yeah, no, 3D printing's cool. I really like printing my own stuff too, because it's just there's just something different about seeing it physically, and I don't know. Yeah, it's just a lot of fun. I haven't got into painting them yet. I probably should try to clean them up a little bit someday too, but that just sounds like a lot of work to me sometimes, because you have to do that in real life. And a lot of people that know me well know that this computer screen right here is where I'm comfortable. Probably getting a sunburn from all the different lights I have on my face all day. That's all right. Okay. We're getting a little bit too nitpicky right now. I think we're going to have to start moving on to the next pieces here. So I don't want to undo this part that we just did here. But it looks like we got just a little bit of wiggliness here. So when I'm looking at it, I just you can see, because of the shading, the bright spot on the front kind of is straight here with the middle toe, and then it turns and goes off. So that kind of means that the topology is twisted in a way. So I want to fix that up just a little bit before we move on anymore. And then really, I think this guy's going to have a little bit wider feet. I don't... let's see. Oh, we got... Okay. 3D prints of mythical creatures would be so cool for my bookshelf. Have you done any water-related creatures, like a kraken? I haven't. That would be cool. I've been meaning to also make a... I don't know why I can never remember. Not a hippogriff, the other one. There's one... Honestly, eventually I'll make one of whatever creature exists. I'll try to make a copy of all of them, but there's kind of like a horse / dolphin thing. I can't remember what it's called. Hippocampus, maybe? But I have thought about trying one of those. But yeah, Kraken would be cool. It might be hard for my printer to handle it, because sometimes it doesn't seem to like my settings and it strings really bad, and I just haven't tweaked it enough. But thank you very much for the interesting, informative video. What do you think? Is 4070 Ti Super and Ryzen 7900X good for Blender and Unreal Engine 5? Oh yeah, 4070 Ti Super and a 7900X would be fantastic. It's especially CPUs. Most of the time, you're not going to be able to make use of a whole lot more than 12 cores. So 7900X is kind of the best of both worlds, with a really high clock speed on all cores, and you know, it's 12 cores. It can do all kinds of stuff. So your 6 and 8 core processors will use all of their threads up, and for most of the tasks that I work on, 12 would normally be plenty. And this PC actually is 24 cores, and I sacrifice a little bit of clock speed, but the simulations I like to run will use up more cores and more RAM, so I kind of switched up to get that stuff to run faster. But before this one, I had the 7950X, and the clock speeds are just so much faster on that. This one is actually the Threadripper 7965WX. So this one's 5 gigahertz all core, and those easily run at like 5.6. So it does make a difference in things where you're not using all of the cores. So 12 cores with a 70 Ti Super is great. Yep, Hippocampus. Yep. So I did get it. Okay. There's too many of the Hippo something ones that I just forget what they are. Let's see. What else? I don't know. I think with the whole egg question though, it's been bothering me a little bit. I'm kind of thinking it would probably not be an egg. So somebody might have to argue against that, but I don't know. I think these still seem like mostly a deer with some bird paint on them, almost like a racing stripe. It's just kind of an add-on. Definitely one of the many strange creatures people have come up with. Okay, what do we need to do here? Let's look at our topo. So our topo is a lot. We have a lot of it. Say we don't need to necessarily retopologize it yet. Maybe let's make the tail. Let's do that. That's something we can make progress on. Let's see. Definitely not an egg. All right. So far we have 2 votes for baby Perytons are not from eggs, and we have 1 vote for. Do we have 1 vote for eggs? Oh no, we don't. We don't have any other votes yet, so I guess the not egg option is winning. Let's get the snake hook going. Let's just start from the top with this one. These ones, it looks like it kind of comes off the back more. So let's put the strength really high, radius not too much, and we'll just start dragging that out a little bit. I think we're going to use kind of the same shape as a deer tail, but we're going to make it longer, and it'll have feathers on it. I think that's the way we're going to go with it. That may be kind of cool. We're getting a little folded up here. Hold on. Better fix that before it gets out of hand. Yeah, here you go. So this is a good example of the weird stretching that you can get. So the easiest way to fix it is to go back to the draw tool with the 0 strength and just draw back over this thing and just kind of reset your topology. I don't know why dynamic topology didn't fix that for me, but it didn't. Oh, now we have a vote for an egg. The back end is a bird, so it must be an egg. All right. So 2-1 so far. We don't know for sure. pull this. And I guess, yeah, if we have a bird tail going on, so that's probably a fair argument. Let's crank up the strength. Let's just start pulling this down a little. We'll go back and inflate this. A lot of times when I see people make tails, they'll actually leave them straight out because they're easier to rig. So I'm wondering if maybe that will be the better answer here. And I think on this one that actually might be a really good idea, because if we're going to do a system of feathers, it'll be a lot easier to line them up if the mesh isn't bent. So we'll kind of leave that for now. And then let's just fix this shape a little bit. Change up the... So the tail will kind of fix the shape with creases. That'll be more so later on. But gotta get the general form correct so we don't get lost in it. We'll just kind of do it like that. And then the tail sort of comes right out the back of the spine like that. That should be pretty close. And then I'll actually try to fix up the legs here a little bit more. Yep, the grab tool down here, smooth, crease, and inflate are really the ones I use almost always. So it probably looks intimidating with all these tools on here, but I really almost use none of them. So if you're just trying to learn, don't be too afraid. I think anybody can sit here and tweak their mesh for long periods of time, just like I am. So there's not too much to it. All right, what do we think? It's a pretty long tail, but I think that'll be cool. So I'm gonna start rounding this body out because it's kind of still a rectangle shape from when we set it up. This back here is too wide. Start pulling that in. And here's a good spot where you'd want to use a crease to kind of separate the leg from the body. And it looks like it'll kind of just do that. And you want to cut this crease in because it'll help define the difference. And then what I'll do is smooth out the side of the belly, kind of flatten it out a little more. Take off this corner that made this thing kind of rectangular. And then to set the leg back up again, I will just continue to inflate on the opposite side. So like this here. So I'll be overly dramatic on the front. And then when I come back and smooth out this area, it will fix that basically. So it looks like it's too thick now, but that'll go away. All right. So there I'm just using the smooth tool to kind of knock it all down. You can kind of see the shadings going away. It may be hard on my stream because it's a little bit low resolution because of my internet, but let's see if we got some comments. Nope, looks like we're still struggling to decide on the egg issue though. It might be the most important question of the day so far. All right, yeah, so see, I'll smooth this out, and we don't have this big lump on the front of the leg now, but we still have a nice definition that separates it from the body, and it doesn't stick out too much. So that's kind of what I say. I overbuild and then smooth it back down. And some people probably hate that idea, and some people probably would like it a lot. So it's really just figuring out how you can handle visualizing it, I guess. All right, now, so this still is going to like kind of look deer-like here. So we're going to make all the bumps on the bottom parts of the legs pretty extreme. And these are parts that retopo probably won't do too much damage to. So I'll add little general ones like this just to kind of see what it looks like. And then now you can see the bumps on the very back of the joint here are not aligned with the leg. So just like we did earlier on the front of this one, I'm gonna kind of correct that now before we decide to sort of move on. And you can just kind of pull this bump around. We don't want to make it too extreme, but it's got to stick out a little bit, I guess. Let's pull this down just a little. There we go. And just thin out the legs. All right. Let's maybe pull the thighs up again like that. Should be some sort of a little dip here, I think. Kind of pull this in. Inflate the leg muscles here just a bit. All right, let's see. That's going to be flat. So let's just do a little bit of inflate there. All right. That's a good starting point. So pretty soon, before you get too far into details, now is the best time to decide if you think your scale is good. So if we compare this to our little reference picture, let's see if you guys can see that or not. It looks like ours, to me, it looks like ours is just a little bit bulkier than this one, which is fine. But let's just try to keep it a little bit like our reference and see if we can make it more deer-like. I think the back on this one actually looks like it's more flat than ours, so that's interesting too. The belly's not so far off. Can pull the chest down a little bit. The neck is probably decent. I think there's a little bump here we need to hit. I think that'll be good. We'll pull this up. All right. I don't think it's too bad. Look from the bottom. They kind of have a little bit of a thin spot right by the legs, right in the middle like that. And then in the front, same thing, just pull it in a little bit. And then they have a little bit of a round belly in the middle. And some of the stuff you think would not matter will make this look like a completely different model if you change it up. Okay, so these legs on the front are not aligned with the shoulders. Let's see how that... I think we can move them out just a little more. I think the way that we'll try to animate this one, we'll try to make it aggressive. So having a little bit wider stance might be kind of a good thing. Okay, so it's a little bit general, a little bit squishy in the front, but that's okay for now. Recut the seam in the middle. replace our pivot point there. Okay. Can't believe Blender still does that. When you leave sculpting mode and come back in, you have to turn back on the dynamic topology setting every single time. It's been that way since, I want to say, when I started Blender with version 2.8. And I really, really wish they would change that or allow you to change it yourself, but I suppose there's a good reason for it. All right. Let's kind of set up the muscle a little. This chest is looking a little aggressive, but we'll fix that. All right, we got to give this guy some sort of a leg muscle on the top. So let's build out first, and then I'll smooth it back. Just kind of build the shape of the shoulder there, and put a little bump on the top here. This is going to be overly dramatic, overly beefy. Definitely makes him look way stronger than he should be. All right, then we'll come cut this crease in. We'll make this really big radius and a small strength, so it'll suck this whole area in toward the center. Kind of do that. And then we can put our strength down and hit this whole area with the smooth brush again. And it'll just kind of take the too much off of it, and it'll leave the shape we tried to put. I think that got too far ahead, actually. Let's just pull that back. Just do it like that. Pull the leg forward a little bit. That's fine. Shoulder. Right. Pull this. Have a little dip in the neck. One of these. All right. So we'll be able to keep tweaking everything as we go, but I think the scale is all right. At this point, it's probably a good time to start on the head, because seeing the head with the body can also help you kind of check the scale in a way. We have an answer with evidence here. Rona Witt says the internet says that the Peryton would lay eggs, and apparently, obviously, scientists have measured up to 3 at a time. So, I guess that's the most official answer we've got so far. 3 at a time. So that must mean they are more of a bird. Interesting. Three eggs at a time. Okay. Yeah, this one will actually be pretty interesting to finish this character, because we're going to have to use probably old-fashioned particles for the feathers. I have some hair tools that include feather-like hair cards, basically, but it'd be kind of interesting to see how we can do that. The other way to do it is just to model a feather and basically use a modifier to copy it over and over and over and over, and you just kind of glue it to the model like a bunch of hairs. Just kind of form up the neck a little. I might have to have a little bit of a muscly neck. Just be a little bit scarier than just a deer, I guess. Let's fill in some of this. Okay, that's just completely beefy, so let's take that back down again. So we'll take the corners off. Go nice and aggressive here with the smooth tool. And now we have some of this round shape, but we don't have quite the extreme detail. And then for all the stuff around the shoulders and whatnot, we'll come cut those details in after we decide how much retopo we need. And so kind of like we did on the back, I'll come in here and we'll just kind of start to cut these seams around the legs just to see that everything is looking okay. Let's just switch that up a little. There we go. Get a better seam by just making that tool stronger. Okay, so now this guy, I'd say the chest is getting a little bit aggressive. But maybe that's all right. Just pull it in. Yeah, that's looking all right. We'll fix this shape in here in a while. I don't like it, but it's okay. Okay. I'm gonna save this because we haven't yet, and that would just be not a lot of fun. Let's see. I've made a bet before. Before we found out we have a betting system going on in the comments. That's okay. So Brianna must have won. I think she was leaning toward eggs. T-Bones says eggs are expensive. So let's get this thing created and put it to work. Well, actually, yeah, that's true. What are eggs now? Are they still like $10 a dozen? I don't know. Because yeah, these ones would be big. Eggs would be huge. Think about the size of the omelet. Yeah, it'd be hard to use it all in time. Pretty cool. Although as cool as fantasy creatures are, I wouldn't say that I'd rather that they were real. Because most of the stories revolve around them eating people or something. Yeah, okay, we kind of just destroyed that, but we'll just fix it later. That's fine. Let's pull this out. Okay, I'm gonna start some sort of head so we can get the shape down. So let's go back to object mode and we'll save it. All right. Disconnect this controller. It's supposed to be magnetic and stick to the side of this screen, but apparently if there's anything on the back at all, it gets too slippery and it just slides off and falls on the floor. So that doesn't work anymore. All right, now let's go. Let's add, what's a good shape? Let's call this one, let's name this. This will be Peryton body. Pull that down a little bit. Okay. Let's just add. You know, we could almost model this one, but I just don't do that normally. So we'll just stick with the sphere again. I'll scale it down. We'll get it kind of close. Let's use this reference for now, just to start, because it's already in here and there's all the hoopla with adding the references earlier. So we'll just get that like kind of close. And then I'll shade it smooth. Might as well subdivide it while it's still a mesh. That's nice and easy. Well, let's just do it again. How about that? Okay. And then we'll call this one the head. Uh-oh. Peryton. There we go. My mouse was right in the wrong spot. I couldn't see what it was doing. Okay. Then we'll go back to sculpt mode. And I'm going to do this again with X-ray mode. Just kind of look through the mesh and X mirror. Probably make sure it's at 0. Yep, looks like it's in the center of the model there, so Dino Topo, and let's just start pulling on this thing. And see, this one doesn't have nearly as much topology, obviously, as the body. So this is much easier to be able to just drag to where we need it. So really the back of his head actually probably has to be there. Let's just do this. Kind of give him this little eyebrow spot. And the hard part here is the perspective of the picture is not necessarily sideways, so we're gonna probably use multiple references over the course of building this. So obviously his neck would line up better than this picture in the background does. Let's pull that up a little bit. And so just like before, go as general as you can and get as much of the shape done as you can see. So that's not too bad. I'll look at my little toy model here. See, the nose needs to be just a little bit wider. The rest of the head probably a little bit thinner, except for the back. And then this here will kind of fill in a little bit. And we'll tie that in. We'll tie this in later by combining it with the body. But it's better to do some of the medium detail work before you combine them. Otherwise, you end up accidentally sculpting on the head. All right, and so deer have kind of wide eyebrows. And then they have pretty thin noses. So we'll keep that a little bit. I'm going to pull these where his eyes will be in just a little bit. Although they are pretty forward facing, I think they're still out on the head fairly far. Let's go see the side. Let's do that. Okay. Kind of square off the head. I think they have a little bit of a flat forehead there. Something like that. I know their noses kind of round out at the top, so I'll try to get that shape ready to go ahead of time a little bit. And then their eyes are further back than that, so let's pull the eyes back. Noses are somewhat thin. All right. So now I'm going to grab the draw tool. We'll just kind of make a little representation of where the eye socket will be there. Kind of build this forehead back up. Give him a little bit of detail. Kind of draw the nose in like that. Yeah, and all the weird lines on here are because the dynamic topology is adding extra details here. So if I want to avoid that, I can just go everywhere on here and just kind of get ahead of it, I guess. We'll do that. Actually looks like it's not much more detailed than it was, but it's consistent now, nothing stretching. And this head is looking pretty creepy. And one funny thing about character design that I heard on the internet once is that the weirder your character looks in the viewport, the better it is, or the better it might turn out to look when it's done. I'm not sure why that's the case, but it seems to work a lot of the time. guy's head. We're gonna have to fix this with the neck later. I'm gonna have to move this, but that's all right. Yeah, I think the head is clearly just a little bit too small. Fine. Let's see, we got some. Next question is, what does it eat? Worms, fish, or grass? Well, I mean, in the stories, it eats people. And I don't know, at this point, I don't know which ones are the original story, but I've heard anything from they trick people and lure them into the forest to eat them, to they're just kind of an animal, so I don't really know. But the most official answer, at least from the original book, is that they eat people. So, but I know they're in a few different gaming universes. I don't know if they're in World of Warcraft or D&D maybe, but I'm sure those kind of worlds have like a lot of lore that they've made for it. So maybe you can go by D&D or something. Okay, let's see. T-Bone says, does Blender have AI capabilities? For example, could you give Blender a picture and attempt to make a 3D model? There's actually quite a few add-ons that are coming out for that. I think most of them are kind of plugins for some of the AI, like, oh, like what's, I haven't used them for a while, but I had one a long time ago that would let you texture inside of Blender, and you could just type in a material and select the object, and it would allow you to, like, you could say that this was deer fur, and it would just kind of make all of it look like that. Or you could pick a wall and say this is a brick wall. So they've had that before, and there's plenty of software on the internet that creates 3D models from images and descriptions. So I imagine there's add-ons for it. I just haven't done it myself, but they are definitely adding a lot of that stuff. Which the ones I've seen that build 3D models aren't really that good yet. I think they can do super simple stuff, but they're not very good with using a single image to create a model, because anything that wasn't in the camera view tends to be a little bit skewed. It just doesn't know what to do yet. But I mean, every day the models get faster, they get more training, so I imagine here soon you'll be able to do quite a lot without having to know the software at all. And that part I'm not sure I'm a fan of, but if it saves time and money, then somebody will use it, and it'll probably become the only way to do it. All right, now these, I know I've made this mistake before working on deer heads. I think these have to turn forward more. So I'm just going to do that now. They kind of, the eye sockets face forward. A lot of animals, they kind of face to the side. I think these are a little bit, maybe an angle. So I'm just going to kind of try to stop my repeated mistake. Okay. This thing looks pretty scary, but let's scale it up, because that'll help a little bit. Do you happen to know the book title? I'm gonna buy it off Amazon. I don't remember. I can find it though. Let me go. I'll find it quick. Might as well. I don't think that'll cause us any problems. Peryton was invented by George Louis Borges, Borges. in his 1957 book of Imaginary Beings. So that's what it's called. Book of Imaginary Beings. But yeah, it definitely sounds like it's kind of an interesting read. I don't know what kind of, if it's a story or what it is, but that is where it came from. All right, so I'm going to scale up this head. That's obviously too big compared to our reference. That might be close enough to start with. All right. And we'll go back to sculpt mode. Okay. I actually already have a deer head that I've made before, but I didn't want to cheat and reuse that, so I'm just gonna start again with a new one. And really, this thing can look like whatever we want, because it's going to be mixed with a bird to some extent, so it's already not real. I don't know. I don't think I've seen one with a beak yet, but maybe that would be kind of cool. And then we can call him like Beak Buck. Yeah, that's fine. I don't think that's been used. That should be fine. Maybe we'll go with that. Okay, I think this thing, it needs an ear, because that's the next thing that's bothering me. So the ear kind of comes off of the back of the channel of the eye, if you want to call it that. Let's see, what should it be? I don't know if we can make an ear more bird-like or not. Let's fix that little creepy hook there. Just 0. There we go. Sometimes the snake hook tool gets a little aggressive. Where is my correct topology? Man, they're really messing with me, switching up my tools here. Oh, let's just do this. Let's just do. So if you pull the mesh too thin, it can cause pretty goofy little errors like just happened, and it can actually leave some vertices floating outside the model, and that causes some really annoying problems later. So we don't want that. Looks like we're good to go now, though. Pull these in. Let's pull these out. We could make it look a little different if we want, but we'll start with deer shape for now. Kind of giving cow vibes at the moment. Yeah. So these will probably have to be a bit wider. Let's just do it. That's an easy one, and the topology fixes won't break it. So let's kind of just form up that shape. Those look pretty good. Let's go with a little bit of a negative draw tool. Need a little more than that. All right. You always want to be careful with the draw tool, really any of these tools, because it will just continue drawing it until it touches the mesh on the other side. And I don't know if they've ever changed that, but in the old versions of Blender, it will just continue to go through it, and they'll just kind of clip through and be on the other side, and that just also causes messes later. That's super annoying to fix. So don't go too far with your drawing tools. Let's just kind of we'll cut the shape of the ear inside there. So now another thing that you'll end up having issues with is the mouth. The mouth is always a tricky one because you kind of have to spend some time early to get the topology right, and then you're going to end up breaking it and having to fix it. But that's one that I've never found a better way to do it. So you kind of just have to deal with it twice, which isn't fun, but it's just how it works. So those are good starts for the ears. The eyes, it kind of looks a little more like a deer. It's not quite as scary now. Make the nose a little bit wider. I think they kind of have this ridge, and then the nose falls off in a round shape off to the side like that. And it'll have just kind of a little bit of a jaw underneath. Pull this line down a little bit. You got to be careful so it doesn't look like a dog or something, but I don't think this guy will need any more types of animals mixed into it. Pull that up a little bit. All right, and now here is the trick of the mouth. It is super, super complicated stuff. But you're just going to put a whole bunch of topology on here so you can cut a nice specific line. And what I do is kind of like we've done other things. This is the shape I want the nose to be in, but I have to cut the mouth in. So I have to over widen this just a little. And then you just have to plan a little bit, because ideally this will have its mouth open for when I rig it. And that makes it really hard to see the shape of the actual face when it's closed. So it's another one of those, you could just make the mouth later if you wanted. Because right now it looks too thick, but I'll show you here. Let's get the draw tool. And I think you can maybe see what I'm going for here, but if I took this sharp crease tool and I just kind of draw where the mouth will open. The reason I want to use extra topology for this is because I want to be able to cut these sharp lines. I don't want to take the front of this, the nose, and especially this jaw because it's kind of small. I don't want to take that and bring the whole thing inside of the model. So I'm going to just kind of define this. And, you know, you're going to end up having to fix the outside a little bit, but you don't want to completely destroy the form. So I'm going to get this cut in. I'm going to smooth it out one more time so that it's not quite as crazy of a shape. And now you can kind of see how it's gonna work. But at this point, all you really have to do is take the draw tool with a super high strength and make it somewhat small, and you just keep working on bringing that to the inside of the mesh. And once you get it in there far enough, you can basically just kind of drag it. Let's see. Let's just do it like this. So I'll set my, this is set up right here to rotate about the 3D cursor. So if you look at object mode here, the 3D cursor is, let's get it to pop up here. Why are we, we're in sculpt mode. The 3D cursor is this little red and white thing here. It's It's just part of the tool system in Blender for those of you who do not know. But you can set this up so that wherever this is set, your camera just will rotate around that. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'll show you how to kind of get inside of the model. So I'm tabbing into edit mode here, and then I'm setting that model, the 3D cursor on the model right here, so that when I zoom in really far and then I rotate, all of the sudden my camera view is inside of the mesh, and I won't affect any of the stuff that I don't want to anymore. So now I can go back up to sculpt mode, and you can use the inflate and deflate tool really easily from in here. The problem is plus and minus are probably going to be flipped, so you just have to pay attention to that, because now it looks like it's getting bigger, but according to the mesh it's actually shrinking. So what I want to do is just get this a little bit easier to grab. So I'm going to make it thicker, and doing this from the inside of the mesh will make it so that I don't have to touch the outside of the mesh very much. And once you get this kind of started a little bit, it's much easier. It's much easier to just hit it with the draw tool. Let's make this a little smaller. Oh, that's part of our problem. Let's turn dynamic topology back on. There you go. So now when I draw on this, it's not going to take the lips with it. It's not going to take the nose. You just got to kind of try to get a bubble. And this one definitely looks like it's a little bit confused with the normals again, because it keeps kind of folding in on itself. So I'm going to have to do this the fun way. Let's just use the grab tool and just kind of pull it back. So now that it's like this far away from the nose, you can see even here when I move this inside the mouth, it's not destroying the outside of the face. So it's a little annoying, I guess, how I start that. But once you get that done, it's not too bad. So now we'll just take our draw tool from the outside, pretty easy, and you want to kind of rotate every now and then to make sure you're cutting into the model the right way. But we're just gonna keep drawing backwards into the model to make the mouth, and it doesn't have to be realistically large, because when you put lighting in the scene and you have materials, and if like on this one the inside of the mouth will probably be a dark color, so you're not going to see a whole lot of detail in there anyway, I guess depending on what you're doing with it. But I wouldn't worry about making it too realistic unless that's part of your plan, and it is not part of mine. So then let's check and see. So the outside of it, we moved it just a little bit, but not too bad. So now if I came in here and wanted to pose this, where is they changed the pose tool. I'm not going to mess with that now because I will break it then. But let's just say I wanted to close this mouth back up. Now it's going to look a lot like it did before once you close that up. So it's we haven't really damaged the shape we started with. So that's kind of the annoying mouth process. I made an entire video about that a very long time ago, and that might have been one of my first decent Blender videos, actually. All right. So that's a decent little start. I think his nose is a little wide. Just pull that out. I know that this should be a little bit more angular. Let's pull his jaw out. So that's starting to look okay. Let's pull this eye in to the right angle. So the eyebrow kind of comes forward. And then the eye, well, eyelid, I guess, is somewhat turned like that. So it's not so much of a straight on, and it's not so much sideways. It's kind of 45 degrees. Okay, let's pull that in. And their heads aren't usually super wide on the top, but we will leave some room for antlers on this. Let's do some of that. Let's see what's in the chat. Okay. Ever heard of Peryton? It's like a image to 3D model AI thing, but people on the internet say the one who made 3D model is the artist, not the AI. So the artists have to finish the model in 15 minutes. Interesting. I haven't heard of it, but I'll look into anything. I mean, I really enjoy just doing this whole process on my own, but there's definitely times when like I really don't want to build a chair or try to make a tree from scratch. So I definitely see the you know, I'm not against AI. I just don't want it to completely replace all the creativity, but I think texturing tools and simple model generators and stuff like that are great. But yeah, I'll have to look that up and see, um, because I could see like something like background, like mountains or hills in the background, lighting stuff would be good for me because I really don't know how to do that stuff as well as other things yet. So, speedrunning 3D modeling actually sounds more fun to watch than all those gaming ones. Yeah, I've seen some people that can do a lot of things in Blender very fast, and it is more entertaining than you'd think. Should do a speedrun video. I tried to do it a long time ago, but I should try again. I've sculpted a lot more since then. Time lapse would be cool. Yep, I did a lot of really boring ones of those when my channel started, so I could definitely retry that. Does Blender keep track of keystroke totals? Would be cool to see how many clicks it takes to create each character. I don't know. That yeah, that's an interesting question. I have a software I've used on here before that will it will display your keys and mouse clicks on the screen. So like for tutorials, people can see what you're doing. But I don't know if there's one that counts all of them. I imagine it's probably quite a lot though. And it really depends on how you do it because if you count all of my undos that I normally have to use, then it could be a pretty big list. All right, let's see. Let's pull this. Let's pull the back of the head. Yeah, with AI models too, I think one thing that is kind of a cool idea too, though, is if you if you were going to start making this model from scratch, it would obviously be a lot easier to just start with like type in deer and just start with that as a base, and then you could spend all of your time just customizing it to be what you want it to be. So I don't think AI just completely destroys art in any way. I just sometimes I struggle with the term uh, prompt engineer, or I'm a prompt artist or something like that. I understand there's some there's some minutia to that, but I don't know that that's the same as doing art. But I don't know. I think there's a lot of cool uses that could save people dozens and dozens of hours on every project. So I think that's a good thing. Okay. Caught up on the chat. I don't want to miss any of the comments. We've had a couple life-altering discussions about Perytons today. Okay, all right, something's wrong with this, but we'll figure out what it is later. It almost looks just a little bit happy or something. We have to get rid of that. This character can't be happy, right? He's doomed to sneak around the forest and eat people, apparently. And lay eggs, I guess. That's the only other thing we know for sure is they lay eggs. Okay, let's try to round this nose out. Here you could cut in the actual nostrils. So we can start that. Retopo is going to destroy it more than likely. But it does help. It does help to see the shapes on the model a little bit, so you kind of know. Let's see. I need to look at this one because I always get the nose wrong. I think it has to come in toward the center just a little more too. But it helps to kind of convince yourself that the model is going the way you want it to if you add some of these smaller details early on. So they may get destroyed while you're working on the next steps, but at least you would know that the head is the right shape and size for what you want. So let's just pull that up. Kind of get rid of this lip. Let's pull this in. Pull this out. That's kind of getting to be the right shape. Pull it in a little more, pull it a little. And I mean, this guy's partly a bird, so we can change it if we want. People ask me why I make mythological characters, and I tell them things, but the real answer is because they don't exist, so it's hard to say that mine is wrong. That's a big part of it. You get to do whatever you want if you're making something that's not real. All right, let's pull the little skin fold out over here. Make sure it doesn't get up too high, though. Kind of start with that. Just kind of shows the shape a little. Let's do this. I don't think we have this flat part on the head. So I'm going to work on switching that so it's the right direction. So I'm going to do a little bit of a ridge down the middle. And then I'm going to smooth it back down just like other things. So I'm going to overdraw this a lot. Kind of bring it out here, make this eyebrow shape kind of tie in, and then we're going to just destroy that. And so what I've done again is just change it from being a square shape to now it's a nice round nose with no lines on the sides. And then I'll kind of smooth out the top of this. It'll be pretty good. Okay. That's something. Kind of looks a little bit kangaroo-like at the moment, but we'll figure that out. Radius. All right, now let's cut the seam around the ears. So, and I'm telling you, it's these little things that will make it change from this guy has no idea what he's doing to okay, that's actually cool. And I don't know, there's just some point when you'll zoom out on your model and then you realize that it actually looks really cool. And I think that is why I like character art more than anything. Because it's just so rewarding once you finally decide that it looks like what you wanted. All right. And then you you go put a rig on it, see how it moves, and you realize that your topology is terrible and it's really hard to animate. But not always. Okay. All right. Let's pull that out a little. Who else is in here? We should do we should do the horns really fast, because I have an old tutorial on building horns, and a surprising number of people ask about remaking the tutorial, and I wonder if we shouldn't just kind of show that right now. So in that old video, I made curves, which are just basically a line that you can pull the points around and you can make it whatever shape you want. And then I just gave it a circle as the shape, so it just turned into a big tube. Nowadays, I really just do everything by sculpting. So I think I'll start off with the sculpting way, but maybe we'll add the curve way here after a little bit. But so I'm just going to start the horns. I think that makes a really big difference. So let's take our draw tool. We'll crank up the strength, make it a little tiny small tool, and then I got to make sure to get this one right. So these should be at the top of his head, straight back from the eyes. So it's kind of going to be really right in there. And then his ears might have to move just a little bit, actually. I'll kind of just draw a big old blob there. And then before I get on too far, I'm gonna move the base of the ear back. I think it actually should be kind of right under that. So I'm going to do that. So see, this is why. Don't get too detailed with sculpting too early, because you'll have to move it and it'll end up just stretching all your stuff out. So let's just do that. I think it was too far backward on the face. So let's just kind of pull that out. It might be a little big, but we'll fix that later. All right, so snake hook. This one is the elastic one. I really miss the original one, but I'm not sure they have it anymore. There it is. Snake hook tool. Let's use that. Can I not pull this up higher? Huh. Well, that's annoying. Okay, that's fine. So we'll use snake hook instead of the elastic one, so that we don't pull everything around there. And now, with our nice little blobs, I'll just take this and I'll just start to pull this out. And you can see how easy that is. Now, you might want to keep them thick enough, because if you keep trying to pull that out, it'll just it'll make it thin, and it'll give it that same problem that I had earlier where it leaves points floating around. Let's thicken the base. Just kind of get it close. We might have to move a little bit later, but that's a good start. So let's do that. And then here, I always think things like horns are kind of fun, because you can really change how they look. You can make the two sides different. But for now, let's just do them so they're symmetrical. So I'm going to take that snake hook tool again, and I'm just gonna go from the side this time, and I'm just gonna kind of drag it in another big curve. And this is going to be, so far it's the completely wrong shape, but I'll show you that won't matter here in just a second. So let's inflate this one more time. We just don't want to lose all of the points. And now that it's kind of far away from the mesh, I can use the elastic grab and just start to kind of pull this into the shape that it needs to actually get to. So I think sculpting antlers, horns, stuff like that, I think sculpting's a lot easier personally than modeling. I think just in general, anything organic, I don't even really bother modeling anything anymore. Let's see. Looks like we're grabbing our ear here too much. But so a lot of people will probably ask that I redo a tutorial for these with modeling, and that's fine. I'll still do that. But I just think it's just a lot quicker once you're used to sculpting. Do it that way. And let's just pull this kind of, it's going to look weird for a minute, but let's just kind of get it to where it needs to go. Those are a little bit tall, but that's all right. So now it's always easier to inflate first if you have suspicious topology, and then come back and fix it, because if you thin it out too much, it can break permanently, basically. You won't be able to do much about it. So these are nice and lumpy, but they won't be for long. Okay, now these will need, let's turn that empty off. I don't want to move the ears too much, so I'm going to get rid of the elastic part of this tool. This has to come down a lot, I think, still. And the elastic grab tool used to be, I think it was called elastic deform, and it seemed to work in a little bit different way than it does now. I think I liked it a lot more back then, but try to figure it out. Okay. Do you always mirror both sides of the character and then make each side unique later? Must be easier that way. Yeah, a lot of the time. I mean, for just unique features and stuff, it's fun to have some variance, and things like horns are a great way to do it because they're super obvious to see. So like I don't usually change small like muscle details from one side to the other, but horns are good. I put scars on characters sometimes that are only on one side. So, but the easiest way to do it is to just build it mirrored, and then when you come back at the end, just when everything else is more or less done, you just want to take the mirror off and then make your changes, and then at that point you're just done. So if you start, well, like let me show you here. If I do this and I stop mirroring, and then I want to go back and I want to edit the face mirrored, well, now if I try to move the horns, they're not going to move the same. So the best example is if I cut a scar in over this guy's eye like I did on one of my other characters, if I do that now, then any changes I make in the mirroring later to just the general shape of the face will just kind of pull it out of proportion. They won't look the same, or you won't be able to change the general shape the right way. So that's kind of the way I go about it, is just wait until the end. And then if you're building something that's not mirrored at all, like if this guy's bird feet were on his right side and the deer feet were on the left side, then you wouldn't really have to mirror it for a whole lot of the process anyway. So it just kind of depends. Okay. So these are kind of the shape of deer antlers. They're a little bit far back, but that's kind of a preference thing too. they change. Let's make them nice and wide like that. Let's make the bottoms thicker just a little bit. Smaller radius, a little bit less strength. We can zoom in. So and anyone who ends up finding this because they're looking for the horns tutorial, I'll still go back and make that with at least 2 different ways to do it. So I know I kind of glossed over it here. Don't think that's all you're going to get. I'll remake it. I just have to get back into kind of beginner mindset, like beginner tutorial mindset, because I don't want to go too fast on it. I haven't really done a lot of beginner tutorials for quite a while, so it'll take me a minute to kind of check myself and make sure I'm doing them right, but it'll get done. All right, let's do that. Just kind of pull these in. Made them a little too far to the middle, but so even though these horns are super janky looking, they look like some sort of, I don't know, crumpled up earthworm or something. I'm going to let them be for now and just start to add some of these spikes on here, some of the points on the antlers. All right, because again, once we see the shape of this, it'll start to look like we have some sort of an idea of what we're doing with it. And it kind of helps to see it all come together. Because if you have antlers on there that you like, maybe the shape of your ears don't bother you anymore, or the placement of the eyes isn't quite as bad as you thought. So it's good to try to block in as much stuff as you can before you start to go, oh man, this model's terrible. Because sometimes it's better than it looks at that stage. Let's see. Okay, those aren't too bad. Definitely need to be a little bit thicker, but let's do that. Let's do that. All right, now the points or the tines on these, they kind of come off the top. So I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that old snake hook tool again, because that one's just so much easier. And I'm going to just try to grab this, and the size of your tool will change how much of the topology comes with it. So I want to make this so that a lot of the antler around it comes with. So I want to maybe take this right here and do that and look and see. So the base is just a little bit small, so I'll undo that. I'll make this radius a little bit bigger. There we go. And then see, this gives you this nice rounded shape on each side of this, and it kind of inherits the thickness of the horn instead of being kind of like a little blade that comes off. So I will fix the inside of this later, but I think that was a good setting for that. So now I'm just going to add a couple more. And so if you look up pictures, you'd be able to see kind of the general pattern of these or the shapes. But I mean, really, this guy's partly a bird, so let's just do whatever looks cool, I guess. These are really thin, so I'll come back and kind of reshape them. But oh, that one might have got a little out to the side too much. It shouldn't matter from an art perspective, but from my it has to start out perfect perspective, it wasn't adequate. Okay, there we go. So that's not too bad. Also, just side note, if you're in Blender and you have a fairly large amount of topology and you happen to find these are called simulation brushes. They're sort of like cloth brushes, but they use a stupid high amount of processing power and topology. So if you try to use those on a high topo mesh, you will absolutely crash your Blender and lose whatever progress you hadn't saved. So be super careful with those. I'll probably use them on maybe some parts, maybe the like skin around the eyes and the nose and stuff like that would be a really cool place to use the cloth brushes. But with the amount of topology we have on this right here, I can about guarantee you this would crash my PC, even though I have a Threadripper processor in here. So as cool as they look, don't go crazy with them. All right, now these ones got a little thin, so I'm just going to use this inflate tool. And the cool thing about the inflate tool is it just kind of keeps the aspect ratio of everything. So you don't really mess it up by facing it the wrong way, if you will. So it's pretty easy to kind of shape those up. We still have this nice curve to where it ties in to the rest of the antler, so that looks good. I think the end of this is just a little weird, so I'll just kind of pinch that in, make it a little thinner. And really, they break off, they grow different. It can be whatever you want, but I'm not to the point of customizing this one yet in my head. So now let's see how absolutely oversized these antlers are now. Because it's way easier to build them too big than too small. So, yeah, it's a good start. It's kind of cool. Let's see. What? Oh boy. Okay. Needs one turned down antler. Okay. And a notched ear. And spurs on his bird legs. Yeah, I need to look up some better pictures of bird legs to figure out what they look like, because I haven't done enough of those. Also add a short broken chain dragging behind him that's attached to a back leg as if he's, oh, okay, I see what you mean. As if he broke out of captivity. That would be pretty cool. Put like a little clamp on his leg. I thought you meant like he was dragging someone else's leg with him. And that, I wasn't sure about that idea, but now I get what you mean. Cool. All right. So this is kind of coming along. You need spurs. I'm gonna have to go look into that. I'll do that in a minute. I think this'll end up having to be other days of streaming. I don't know that we'll finish this tonight. Actually, I know for sure we won't, but I'll definitely go get better reference images, and we'll make sure that they are saved in an image file instead of whatever the ones I got from Google were saved in. I have no idea what they are. They're like .fiff or something, and Blender doesn't even see them when I try to open them. So I'll try once more to get actual reference images. Let's see, spurs. So for the leg spurs, maybe you mean on the back of the like hawk here? Would that be where they were? On the bird's leg? Because they'd be like halfway up, right? I don't know. And then, I mean, obviously he'll have sort of like toenails on there, but let's kind of reshape this. So I came back to sculpt the body a little. So notice I still haven't combined the head with the body. And the reason is when I want to try to tie these in together, I don't have to do anything with the head. I can't break the head right now because it's not attached. So there's a lot of good reason to leave the head separate as long as you possibly can. And that's true of any character, basically. I think I wait till the very end of the process. Sometimes it's not possible, but you can also mask it just so the head mesh can't be touched, but It's easier just to not have the option to break it. Okay, I'll just kind of try to shape his neck up. I think we still have some sort of a little bit of a scale issue or something weird going on, but we'll just try to do what we can. They have kind of S-shaped necks, so it should dip down by the chest down there, and then it'll kind of come upright and then flatten out again, I think. So we'll kind of do it that way. Honestly, I think this head might just have to move up more physically. So maybe we'll just kind of try that. That won't be too bad. I still don't know how to do that with my drawing tablet. I have seen people that can navigate all of the different parts of Blender easily with just their drawing tablet, and those people blow my mind. Like they add objects, they do all of their modeling, they do everything with the pen, and I don't think I could ever learn to do that because there's just so many controls in this program. But it is very cool to see. All right, let's give him that little bit of bump on his neck. It's like it doesn't have to be too extreme. It'll tie right into the back of his head there. And then once we combine them, eventually I'll be able to kind of smooth that out, so that's fine. That's fine where it is for now. Let's make his top view look a little bit better. I think we can thin out his hips a little more. Maybe make his belly just a little thicker. He looks a little bit scrawny. Okay. All right. Well, it's looking pretty cool for a starter. I'd say something's off, but it always is until you're done with it, so maybe we don't have too much to complain about yet. Yeah, I like I think a cut ear, the antlers varying, the chain behind him. I think that is cool. That is a cool idea. Be kind of fun to use the cloth physics and try to figure out how to make that kind of work on its own too. Be a good little side project for it. All right. I want to make this part of the leg pretty dramatic as far as the angles and shapes go. Let's kind of clean up the general sculpting again one more time. Sometimes it's helpful to come back after a little while and look at it again. All right. I think these need to be a little thicker. Let's see, how low is this? It's kind of cool. It's working all right, I guess. Next time I see this model, I'll probably go, what was I thinking? That's all right. Let's check the stance of it. I don't think it's too bad. I think in general, you want your feet to line up sideways. I mean, normally, otherwise it's going to look like a drag car with wide tires in the back or something. You don't really want that too much. But you know, if the back legs are different, they're different. All right, yeah. So I think that's a good starting point for the base mesh. So the next thing you could do here is say you were happy with this model, but you know, you're ready to move on. You want to start adding the little muscle details on the legs, and you want to do whatever, but you have this topology. If you sculpt it on here and then you come back and you retopologize this later, you're going to lose a lot of that detail. So better way is to run the retopology now, and there's a few ways to do it. Blender has a couple ways. They're okay. I wouldn't say they're really useful as far as run it and they're done. They're definitely not final. They work, but the tool I use is part of Zbrush, which is a Maxon software, and it's stupid expensive to buy, so almost nobody should go get that. But I build enough characters now that it saves me 5 to 15 hours on each one doing retopology by hand. So it's kind of up to you. You know, there's add-ons that do it that don't cost very much. There's free ways to do it that may take a little more time. But basically, you want to get this relatively messy. Well, it's not even too messy. It's just too many points. And but you can see there's areas where they're not the same. Like this entire spot on the back has more lines in it than these other spots. So if you start trying to use that later, you're just going to destroy all of your little fine detail sculpting. And so let me just pull up ZBrush. It takes about 2 minutes, and maybe we'll call it good there. So once we run ZBrush here, we'll stop it for this one, and then sometime soon, I'll try to post it with more warning, but sometime soon we'll start back up from where we leave off on this one. We'll add the multi-res modifier, and then we can start doing all of the really cool, I don't know, I guess we could call it virtual sculpting, which is where you can get all of that nice extra detail, but you don't have to actually run all of that math. And it blows my mind that it works, but it's cool. So I'm just pulling up ZBrush right now. So I'm going to save this again, and let's start with the body. So I'm going to export this, and I think I'll use FBX. It doesn't really matter. It just has to be a file type that ZBrush supports, but I think it supports just any of the normal ones, so object or FBX or whatever you want to use. So I'm going to export this. Selected objects, it's just called Peryton.fbx. So selected objects, and then I'm going to click on this mesh button down here. Don't want to use any of the other stuff. And then, do we have weird scales? Yeah, let's cancel that. So actually a good thing to do first is to select your model, and I'm going to hit Control+A and apply all transforms. And so when I do that, now our scale is 1, and the model isn't rotated or scaled or anything like that. So when it goes into ZBrush, it's not going to be turned in some weird direction and out of position. So, and at this point, we might as well do it with the head since we're here. We'll just apply transforms, and now you can see on the side there, all of the location, rotation, and scale are all zeroed out, or 1.0 for the scale. So now I'll export the body. FBX, selected objects, mesh. The rest of this won't really cause any problems, and then we'll export. So now I'll drag ZBrush over here, if I can get it to behave. Why can I not grab ZBrush? There we go. Apparently you have to grab this little tiny part of the corner, and absolutely nothing else works. So there, expensive software, that's what you get. So when I get in here, I just open up one of these basic models. I don't remember. I think the ZPR files work. And then I'll just import. And let's see. I gotta go find my file. Go into the Peryton folder. And I'll just open it. Does have a lot of topology. So it might load for just a second here. Ah, that's why. It left a option box on the other page. This is why it's not opening yet. I just have to hit OK to import. All right. Yes, thank you. It is imported now. So now, here's our mesh in ZBrush. And like I said, I don't really use ZBrush for anything yet. It's just an entire other software to use. And as you can see, clearly I don't know how to navigate in it very well. But I did the trial run for this software, and it was so much of a time savings just for this one tool that I ended up buying it. So I'm going to go in here on the side, and I'm just going to go to geometry. And then inside of there's a tool called Zremesher. And before I run it, I need to set the transform to be symmetrical. It doesn't default to that, and that will cause us some problems. So symmetry's turned on. I'm going to crank up the polygon count to the max just to show you how it works. I'm going to say keep creases over here. Don't think we'll need any of these other options right now. So then all you got to do is click this Zremesher button, and you see the little progress bar up there on the top. Let me open my chat back up so I don't miss anything. Okay. So this will take just a second to run. It looks like it's done. So now let me turn on the wireframe here and zoom in. So you remember how everything was triangles and they were very inconsistent. Wow, this is what I get for reinstalling the software. All of the settings are different. Let's go. Symmetry's on. Man, what? Where did that option go? It should be right here, but you can't get down to it. Let's do this. How weird. So apparently it doesn't want me to be able to resize it. I'm going to move it to the other monitor just quick and see if I can find this setting. Yep, there it is. It was just off of the monitor. I can tell you I'm not a ZBrush salesman either. It's nice to have, but I wouldn't wish it on anyone. All right. So now all it did was it made everything a quad that it could. So a good example is on this hip right here. That's a pretty good spot for this. If you have done retopology before, you know it's kind of tricky to place these turning points in the model, and then you can kind of see these ones here around the tail area that it really did pretty good at switching. So, you know, doing this by hand would probably get 5 or 10% better of a result, because there's some spots here that are a little weird. But I mean, for the 2 minutes of messing around with trying to open the program and the 30 seconds of actually running it, this is very, very clean. It's very easy to work with. And when I have to add materials or UV unwrap, everything's just in a nice even loop now. So even if you were done with this model right now, it's just so usable, and you don't have to go through all the pain of manual retopology. So that's with the maximum detail that ZBrush will let me run. So if, let me just Control Z, I can just undo it. Let me just show you what half does. Actually, I'll click on the half, and then I'll hit Zremesher again. And ideally, you want this part to be fairly low topology. So however you go about retopologizing, you want to check and make sure it didn't destroy any details of your model. So I think the sharpest details we have are on the feet, and these look like they're fine. I don't think we lost anything there. So, you know, this has a lot fewer polygons. It should say on here. It has, oh, looks like it reverted our model. Let's just make sure. Yeah, okay, there we go. I don't know why this won't scale to this monitor. That's really weird. That's super weird. But normally up here in the top, it'll show you your new topology count, and I don't see where that went on here. So I'm gonna have to look into how to actually resize this program. But anyway, it's nice and clean. The poly count is relatively low, and we're not really losing anything. So here I'm just gonna export this again. And it's just gonna go back into the little project file for this guy. And I'll just save it as an OBJ, that's fine. And that should be it for this part. Let's go back to Blender. Save changes to ZBrush project. Nah, let's just not. It should work fine. And then we'll open up Blender, and now I'll go up to my scene collection, and I'll add, actually import, file import. And it was an OBJ, which is this wavefront format. And there you can see it, Peryton body. And we'll say, I don't think, yeah, we don't have any options we have to change, just import it. Okay, now it scales it massive for I don't know why. But I want to say, I think the scale factor is 1% that we have to do. Yep. So I scale it down to 1%, and I'm going to apply that scale so it's not different than our other one. And now I'll just move it to the side. Okay, and here's our new one. Nice and clean. Good edge flow, which just means that the lines follow the body. I mean, it's not perfect. It's not how a professional retopology artist would do it. Some of these spots where it changes direction, they might be in a little bit different spot. But for the next part of the sculpting, this is great. This just saved hours and hours and hours. And having the option to run this all the time makes this just really convenient. But this one, let's turn off our other ones. This one is just under 66,000 vertices, and the original body is 174,000, almost 175,000, but there's no edge flow at all to it. So we haven't really lost any of the detail, maybe a little bit, but you can still see the major parts. But it's looking good. This will be super easy to pick up with. So the next step, I would just do the exact same thing with the head. I think it's at a place where it's not ready, you know, to have any more detail added before we do that. So I'll kind of probably do that off camera here. And then next time we'll just take, let's see, where is this? Let's set this back to Let's set this back to 0. So next time we'll take these freshly retopoed models and we'll add the multi-resolution modifier, which allows you to sculpt stupid high amounts of detail. And then we'll take all those details and we'll bake them down into a flat map so that you don't have millions of points that Blender has to calculate. It just reads an image that's a super detailed map, and it tells Blender how much to change the surface. So you can do all kinds of little, I mean, you could even sculpt individual fur or like bumps on skin or tiny, tiny little things. And that map will just visualize that, but it doesn't have to calculate it. So I think in the next part we'll do that. I think, what have we been on? We've been on here for a while. So I think that'll be about it for new stuff that we're doing tonight, but I'll go run the head of the model real quick just to have it ready for next time. And then I'll send out a post with the new link for the next live stream for this so that everybody has a little more warning. You know, this one was just today that I post about it. So I'll try to be out, 2, 3, 4 days at least, so people can plan on it if they want. Otherwise, I'll stay on for just a minute. If you guys want to say something, go ahead. Otherwise, I'll just be back in ZBrush here about 5-10 more minutes, and that'll be it for tonight. So thanks to everybody for hanging out in the stream. I see we got 84 views on this one, which is by far my best live stream. And with all of the issues at the start of it, I can't ask for more than that. So thanks for being here, and we'll be back on soon. Export that. Call that one Peryton head. Selected objects mesh FBX export. Open ZBrush. And then briefly question life choices for buying ZBrush. All right, let's bring it back over. Oh, look at that. It's kind of fun. You can just kind of paint on the screen there. That reminds me of, I think Windows XP maybe. Kind of feels like something that would have happened there a lot more. Okay, let's see. Project has been changed. Nope. Don't want to save that. All right. Now we'll import the head. And it'll say, are you sure? And I'll say, yes, I just told you to do that. Okay, here's our little deer head. That's fine. I kind of forgot we didn't smooth out the back of this, but it doesn't matter. That part's going to get combined with the neck anyway, so it's fine. All right. Symmetry set to X. Make sure this thing is in the center, which it is. Geometry. Zremesher. Oh, let's go half again. See what it does. Keep creases. Boom. All right, biggest thing here is it might destroy the mouth or the little folds on the nose, but it did not. And it actually kind of made the back of the head look a little better. So let's zoom out, make sure nothing weird happened with our antlers. Looks fine. Looks pretty good. Shift plus F. Okay. Apparently that's the way to turn on the other views, because I can't scroll on this program. What is this? No file path. Okay. Okay. Never mind. Sorry I asked, ZBrush. How about this? What does this do? You know what? I'm just going to export this before it crashes. Okay, that looks good. Let's export. Peryton. Peryton head, object, save. Nice. Nope. Oh, let's see. Okay. Import wavefront, Peryton head, scale. We could try to scale it in here and see what it does. Oh, that fixed it. Nice. Let's apply that. Then we'll turn off the originals. So not a big deal. This is a preference thing. Looks like some of you guys are still watching though, so we'll talk about it. But inside of the scene collection, I like to call the normal stuff just the scene, and then it's good to start adding some organization right away. So I'm going to add one for Peryton, and everything will go in there except we want to add another folder, and in here I'm going to call these either originals or copies. I'll call them copies. So you just never know when you're going to break something and have to come back to an original version. So I'm going to take these original two pieces and just slide them into the copies and hide that. So they're not in the screen anymore. They're not visible. And now we just have our two reduced poly ones. So and you might ask why are they different, like sizes of polygons, but that doesn't really matter. We're not necessarily ready to combine them anyway. So we'll do a little bit of like medium detail sculpting first, combine them, and then we'll retopo one more time and do all of the high detail stuff after that. But for now, this gives us a good spot to pick up from next time. I think part of what we'll do too, we'll do some more sculpting, but we'll do a little bit of materials so we can kind of see what it'll look like just in a kind of flat color. So at least it's kind of fun to see how far it got. But yeah, no, we've been on for a long time tonight, guys. Thanks for coming. I think that's it. Hopefully we'll see you back on here in a few days. So have a good one.